exits and things. We'll just crack on, fire exits are there. And they said there would be something. There's not meant to be a fire alarm, so if there is a fire alarm, we should leave. Thank you everybody for coming. My name is Mandy Telford, and myself, along with Rachel Kent and Amanda Stevens down in the front row, we set up a Facebook group a few months ago when we heard that there may be a threat to the current maternity service at FGH, and it has sort of steamrolled into this fabulous campaign. And I'd like to thank every one of you for coming tonight, and thank you for doing your videos. We're currently at 777, which is a brilliant number, because it's actually quite difficult to ask people to put something on YouTube as opposed to sign a petition. So thank you very much. Tonight, the way we're going to do it, the people on the panel, I'll introduce them to you shortly, will introduce themselves, and I've asked everybody to speak very briefly, because this is about hearing what you have to say. But again, I want to have everybody who wants to speak have an opportunity to say something. So when I get to you, asking you to say something again, keep it brief as well. I've also asked the people on the panel not to use too much medical jargon and talk in layman's terms, because I don't really understand what CCGs and things like that are. So if they do say something that you don't understand, I probably won't understand it, and I will give them a nudge. Give me a wave, and we'll ask them to explain it, because it's really important tonight that we all understand where everybody is coming from. So at the far end of the table, we have Jackie Daniel, who is the new Chief Executive of the Morecambe Bay Health Trust. She took over in August 2012, and I would like to thank her publicly for coming tonight. I think it means a lot that the Chief Executive has come to listen to what we have to say. So thanks, Jackie. And then we have Jeff Jolliffe, who is a GP at Rysdale Surgery and is a lead GP commissioner for the Furness locality. I'm not going to say any more about what that means, because Jeff himself is going to explain. And then we have John Woodcock, who is the MP for Barrow and Furness. And then finally, we have George Naismith, who is... Do you want me to say something else?
No.
Who's wonderful. Really nice, a beautiful tile. So John has been incredibly supportive of our campaign. And can I actually add at this point, GMB and Unison as well helped, the Labour Party, GMB and Unison funded the 25,000 leaflets that I know many of you helped us put through the doors. So I'd like to put on record that we thank them. Smith, who's the medical director for the Morecambe Bay Trust. He used to be a general surgeon at Furness General. And that's my daughter over there, so she does shout every so often. I do apologise. So I'm going to start off by asking Jackie to give a short introduction.
Thanks, Mandy. I will keep it short. I've given her my absolute blessing if I do start talking jargon to give me a red card. Because I've been in the NHS 30 odd years, and so I'm so entrenched in it that I might forget. I'm really pleased that you asked me actually here. I think it's important that I connect with the community here, try and do that with the staff. Really important to me that I hear what you've got to say. For what it's worth, I'm here to provide the best possible services we can in Barrow, and to do that, you know, in a very high quality and in a sustainable way. That's my prime aim. I'm really aware of a lot of the feeling and the strength of feeling that we've had in recent weeks. I can tell you that I've had a few sleepless nights. I don't ever want to be in a position where I or the board are having to make decisions in what was, felt like a real crisis situation around staffing again. But I'm sure we'll talk about how we can avoid that in the future. Of course, it won't just be about what I want, it'll be about what you want through a strategic review, through the look at services. The GPs, as Jeff will explain in a minute, will have a big role to play, because some of this might be about money, some of it might be about what we can actually do in terms of quality and so on and so forth. But the important thing, I think, is that we're in a dialogue about it. So, this is a tough job I've taken on. I guess anybody could have chosen, to come and do it. In fact, my mum was listening from up the coast in Cambridge. She said, "Jackie, what are you doing? Shall I come and, be in the audience and help you out?" And I said, "That really won't be necessary, Mum." I said, "But, it is important. I've got relatives around this area. It's important we get it right in this what is a fantastic hospital. I'd like to make it even better." So that's why I'm here, and I don't underestimate the strength of feeling that there is, not just with the public but with the staff as well.
Thank you, Jackie. Jeff?
Hi. Does that come through?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. I can't hear myself. As I said, I'm Jeff Job, GP here. Most of you might know me. I work as my day job there, but I work as a GP commissioner, which is for the CCG, and I'll tell you what that means. Basically, commissioners, we're not part of the hospital service, and we're not part of primary care in this role. We're here to buy services. We hold the budgets for the health services for the people of Furness, and that's the budget for hospital services, prescribing, mental health services, etc. And our aim in life is to get the best outcomes, which should come from the best services, but our sole aim in life is to get the best outcomes. It's not, and that means, in terms of this maternity services, is to ensure that most mothers and children possible are in the healthiest state possible through the service. That's what we're about. We're not about trying to make the hospital bigger or make my salary bigger or anything like that. It's nothing to do with that. It's purely about getting the best outcomes for your health, and that's right across all services, and that's what I'm here for. Now, what we're doing at the moment, I think you really need to understand, is the maternity is an issue, paediatric care is an issue, emergency care is an issue, what we call elective care operations are an issue. Primary care, that's general practice, is an issue. We have issues throughout the whole health service in Furness at the moment. It's not just about funding. It's about the way it reacts to the modern world and its challenges. And we are embarking on a process at the moment that will help answer the problem that we face with maternity care at the moment. So, independent of the crisis that Jackie had to cope with last month, what we have is a planned approach to work to come up with a solution for a modern health service in Furness. And so we have had agreement from the GPs in South Lakeland and Lancaster and Furness to work together, and their representatives are working as commissioners with the clinicians and the managers from Morecambe Bay, and we're working across the system looking at the urgent care, the operations, the casualty, the paediatric children care, maternity and primary care, and we're looking at all of that together to understand how we can cope with the challenges we face. There are the challenges we face because of the things that have happened at Morecambe Bay, there are the challenges because of the economic situation, and there are the challenges that are faced by the demands of the increasing medical technology and practice. So we're working on that over the next 3 months, and I'll finish in a minute, but I just want to say what we're doing, which is quite revolutionary, is actually talking to you, because historically NHS hasn't been good at that. So no decisions will be made, no decisions have been made, there is nothing being done behind closed doors in dark rooms. The decisions will be made in the future, but for the next 3 months we're just working together to understand what the possibilities are for the future. And at that time there will be a public engagement process running through Furness and the rest of Morecambe Bay that is asking you to join in and tell us what you think. So this meeting is a really important part of that, but there will be a company, TNS, formerly known as Gallup, who will be running campaigns through the radio, the paper, website. We'll be asking you to give us your opinions. That's totally independent of the hospital. It's totally independent of us as commissioners. And that will amass the intelligence from the population of Morecambe Bay and tell us what you feel and what you want. And we will use that in shaping our decisions, which will come later in the year, and then there will be a public consultation whenever we get to a point where we know what we think we can do. So, I'll say no more.
Thank you, George. That was very useful.
Jeff.
Sorry, George. Sorry.
John.
John.
Thank you, Mike.
Right, I'm not going to speak for long because this is your chance to make your voices heard to people who have come here to listen to you today. I just want to say two things at the beginning. First of all, to echo what Mandy said, to say thank you. Thank you to all of you in this room for standing up and being counted in the way that you are being. Thank you to the amazing campaigners, people who have been part of the 1,000 Voices campaign. It is making such a difference locally, it's making such a noise, and it's giving us, I think, a chance, to, as we are coming together as a community like this, to be able to, so that people just cannot possibly ignore the strength of feeling in this area, and that is down to you and the work that you've done, and I'm deeply, deeply grateful for it. And thank you also to Jackie, to Jeff and to George for being here. I mean, let's make no bones about it. The confusion over the emergency transfer last month, on top of the problems and some needless tragedies in recent years, have really shaken, I think, public's faith in the management of the trust. And I think the fact that you come here in person, I take as a sign that you want to listen and that you want to make it better for the future. The second thing I want to say is just how much this matters to us. The National Health Service doesn't belong to managers, and it doesn't belong to politicians. It belongs to you in this room. You pay for it through your taxes. Many of you work in it and serve people in it every day. And you put your lives and the lives of your loved ones in its hands. And being in a remote area like we are cannot be an excuse to get poor services. It's a reason why healthcare at our local hospital, Furness General, needs to be first class. It's an hour, as we all know, to Lancaster on a good day on the A590. And we also all know that there are too many bad days on that road. So if 68 mums last year needed a Category 1 emergency caesarean at Furness General, that is, let's make no bones about it, 68 mums and 68 babies whose lives would have been at risk if they'd been put in the back of an ambulance and sent to the Royal Lancaster. And that's why, surely, and I think that is why that the doctor, who is now the government minister in charge of this area, who we were able to secure parliamentary debate with a few weeks ago now, before he became a minister, when he was a member of parliament, before he became a minister, said that the future of midwife-led units was really only alongside consultant-led units, not many miles apart from them. And that's why I think it's so important that you listen to people's views here today, and ultimately that you act on what you hear.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. I don't think I can add very much to what's already been said. We're here tonight because one of the things that we want to do is hear what you've got to say. We're here to provide you with safe, high-quality services, and your views and your understanding of the problems that we face in how we deliver them are for us to share with you. There shouldn't be any secrecy about that. We want to be open and quite candid with you where there are problems. If we tell you what we think you need to know, that may not be what you want to know. So I hope that everybody here will feel free to engage with us and to ask us questions, and we will answer them to the best of our ability. We don't know everything, we can't always predict the future, but I think what we have in common far outweighs what might appear to come between us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to take questions in rounds of three. Could I ask you to be as brief as you possibly can? I would ask panel members to answer all the questions, obviously, if that's appropriate, but you don't have to answer all the questions, and you don't have to answer every round. So I don't want to be a situation like question time, like if you have to say everything about everything. If somebody's already said something, then let's move on. Okay, could people raise their hands? We have microphones, and I will start with, we have three men I'm going to have to take first. Women, take note. 1, 2, 3, these men here. Yes, you could say who you are as well, please.
Norman Hill. I wonder if the panel could explain to me what the following means. Just a sec. Patient environmental assistance. Explain to me what that means and how this is going to help patients attending Furness General Hospital. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to pass the microphone to that gentleman there? There's two, so you can just pass it behind. The man in the blue shirt, if you could just pass it behind when you're done.
Good evening. Could I just really speak on behalf of name John Dixon? I'm chairman of a voluntary group that raises money for the hospital, but could I really speak on behalf of the volunteers? Because the volunteers in this area give a great deal of support to the hospital, and we feel that if this decision or people are thinking about moving things from Furness, that really we put an awful lot of work in supporting these people at Furness General for the work they do, trying to give them the best equipment that we can give them. And what we like back from the management is your support in allowing us to continue to support you. Otherwise, we feel it's another waste of time.
Thank you. I bet could you pass it behind you?
Thank you very much. My name is Bill McEwen. I'm the Vice Chair of the Underhill Residents Association. I'd like to thank you very much to the panel for coming, by the way, to answer the questions that people are asking. I'd like to put my question to Jeff, actually. You said in your little speech before there that you said nothing would be done behind closed doors. That's great, I'm glad to hear that. But is that not why we're here? Because in the first instance, it was behind closed doors. And that's why mandating our team has got to close it. So I just like to know the answer on that, please. Thank you very much.
I will. I'm afraid, Norman, I didn't understand the first question, so I can't answer that patient environmental assistance, but perhaps we can pick it up immediately after this session.
I can tell you what it is. I can tell you what it is.
Okay, please do.
So I just assumed that you would know.
Yeah. No.
It comes from the GMB unit, the northern region. And it's health workers warned yesterday that patients at 5 hospitals in northwest England face more infections if bosses ordered porters to carry out cleaning duties. University Hospitals of Morecambe Bay Foundation Trust are proposing to change porters' job descriptions. Can everybody hear this? Yes! Job descriptions to include terminal cleans. Okay? Now, these are deep cleaning operations of specific areas, including ones where there have been particular problems, such as highly infectious and deadly MRSA.
Okay. I think we get the gist. Thank you. Thank you. I think we're tracking now being thanked. We look at skill mix and job descriptions of all staff groups, and you're right, looking at porters in relation to that. I probably can't answer your question very well in terms of this forum. As I say, I'm happy to pick it up with you either formally or informally after the meeting. I'm sure Jeff would want to respond to Bill's question, but can I just respond to John's in terms of volunteers? You do a phenomenal job. I think we've got great volunteers across the bay, but I have to say they surpass all volunteer services I've seen here in Barrow, and I think that just reflects
you know, the community, I think, and the willingness and the want to get involved in hospital services. So, of course, I'll support you. Of course, we will support you, John. I know that you won an award this year, in actual fact, in terms of our national awards for the Trust, and I hope that said a little in terms of how much debt we owe you. I'd really like to strengthen volunteering, so that might be an area that we can, again, pick up and talk about.
Jen?
Second. I mean, just to finish thanking John, volunteers, community organisations and carers are an enormous resource in the community here, and we all know that, and we all thank you. But it doesn't really come into the mainstream tonight's debate, but just thank you. We recognise that. Was it Bill? I think you've got to understand where the distinction is between the Trust as a provider and me as a commissioner. So what I'm saying is, as commissioners, we will not be taking decisions, have not taken decisions behind closed doors. We haven't made a decision and are keeping it from you. We are open-minded. We're going through this process I described before by understanding the options, and we're listening to the public here now and over the next 3 months. Okay.
Yeah, but what happened? You know, what happened a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sure the panel will correct me if I'm wrong. A decision was made. Commissioners weren't involved. I mean, it was a particularly bad situation, and it got everybody quite upset and angry. And you know, we're here. I think we're all here on this panel to ensure that doesn't happen again. Jeff wasn't involved in that as a commissioner. He's, you know, it's quite. Well, I found this all quite difficult to get my head around. You know, Jeff and Jackie are, are different. You know, Jack is very much from the Trust, and Jeff is a GP in charge of making all these decisions.
Look, Bill, you're absolutely right, and I think you spoke for a lot of people in the room. And many thousands who saw the emergency transfer and thought, what on earth is happening? What does this mean? Are services ever going to come back? And I mean, I think it's a really good thing that actually that the atmosphere in this meeting is very different to the one that when we called the emergency meeting last month, 6 weeks ago, because back then there was real panic. I mean, in people, pregnant mums, putting their hands up and crying because they did not know what was going to happen. Now, I accept absolutely that there was a short-term problem that had to be dealt with, but I think there has been for too long a culture of not enough people talking to different, not only to the public, and they're the absolute most important, but also even to different parts of the health service and to staff on the ground. And look, Jackie has come in with a clear pledge to change that, and she's new. She hasn't been associated with the past few years, and I think that is a really good and important thing. And we have to see that it is followed through and happens. And look, John Dixon, the group is amazing, and I think you symbolise, and not only symbolise but do a lot of the legwork in showing that this is a community hospital, which matters deeply to the people it serves, and is supported by the people it serves. And ultimately, this health service needs to do right by them and by you.
John?
Thank you. I'm not sure I can definitely say anything further in response to what Bill said. I would echo what's already been said about what voluntary services have contributed to the way we provide care at Furness General. And personally, as a surgeon who worked there for 20 years, a lot of the things that I did were enabled because of equipment that was made available to us, through training of staff that was made available to us, through the work of the voluntary sector. And if I can see how sad it would be for everybody if they viewed that as something that would disappear. And I sincerely hope that however services are configured in the future, that will be something, and the community spirit that will support them will be sustained. And again, the detail as the question with regard to cleaning infected areas, I can't provide the detail to that question. But what I would say is that it is very important that when people are asked to do something, they have the appropriate equipment and personal protection equipment with which to do it, and they're properly trained to do it. And I would trust that that would be the case if there were any change in somebody's job description and they were asked to do something additional.
Okay, thank you. That's the first round over and done with. So there's a woman there. Thank you. So there's three. One at the top there. Thanks, Emma. Anthony, one here, and then Terry. There's a woman there. Thank you. At the top. Can you tell us your name, sir?
My name.
People stand up if you don't mind.
My name is Hannah Crosbury. I'm the mother of two small children, both of which would have been born in Lancaster if this had been happening kind of back then. The thought of which completely horrifies me. And I'm aware of the last inspection. I don't know the details because I'm not in the industry, but apparently the last inspection, a really high risk was the length of time it would get to get from the labour ward to theatre. Which, if that's meant to be a high risk or a top risk and something to be considered for the current state of the maternity unit, why is it then okay to transport women, pregnant women, for at least a whole hour to Lancaster? I genuinely cannot understand that.
I'm Rachel Ken. My worry is that people like myself who don't have the means to travel to Lancaster will slip through with care. I don't have adequate childcare. I've got 4 small children. If this had been happening last year, all my pregnancies have been high risk. I would have been automatically sent to Lancaster. I have no way of getting there. My family have no way of getting there. I would have just gone without care that I needed because I basically couldn't have afforded to go to the places you were asking me to go. And I'm wondering how you can make sure that that doesn't happen en masse. Yeah, thank you.
It's not maternity, obviously. It's the general hospital. I've been in hospital for 3 weeks just recently on Ward 7. Excellent care, excellent nurses and excellent doctors. Unfortunately, there was an underlying current all of the time with the staff. They didn't have a clue what was happening. They had a big meeting they had to go to. There was only the unions there. There was no managers there. And I just think that you should keep all of the staff informed.
We'll start with Jeff this time.
Thank you. I thought you were going to say you had a rotten GP, Margaret. I was going to get you. I think that that's a real key issue about keeping everybody informed, and I think lessons are being learned. I'm very keen, if you know me, about public engagement and involvement at all levels of decision making and planning and thought processes when we're commissioning, and I think the Trust will have to answer how they're going to respond to that, but I think they want to move in that direction. I hope they do. So I agree, staff and the public and clinicians as well who work who work in the particular units involved in decision making need to be particularly engaged, and GPs as well, because they've got a viewpoint on hospital services, not just me but your regular GP. So talk to your GP and tell them if you have concerns, problems or thoughts. The other 2 questions were really about transport issues. I like the analogy, if you can't get to the theatre, how can you get to Lancaster? It's a good point, and I just think we'll only ever get to, as a commissioner, I only ever want to be considering that if there is no other option. And at the moment, we're looking at all the other options. So I hope that never has to come into our consideration.
Thank you, Jane. George?
Thank you. Picking up the point first about communication, I would agree with you entirely. These jobs that I've inherited, a management job, having worked in Furness General for 20 years, and what I quickly discovered is that I'm pulled in every which way. We have to much better identify how we provide appropriate communication with staff. There's been a tendency to delegate this to mass email communication, and personally I deplore that. Very often when I receive mass emails, I can recognise them and don't even bother to open them, and I suspect other people do the same. It is not an effective way to communicate. Face-to-face is much better. Personally, I am at present not employed full-time by the Trust, but I will be from next month, and that change, I hope, will allow me to commit myself to at least one day a week when I will work from Furness General. Not least, that will save on my fuel expenses, because, as you probably know, I live locally. So I hope you will bear with us, but we will improve that, and that will get better, because it is very important. The question about transferring people to theatre and transferring people to other units. My personal view is that if there is to be any change in the way that services are provided, for me to support it, I will have to be convinced that it is a safer option than the one that is already there for all those people who will use that service. Does that answer your question?
Jackie?
I think, thanks George for setting it out so clearly. I could answer any of the questions from Hannah, Rachel and Margaret. I think they've all got merit. Hannah, you raised some really important issues. It was a Care Quality Commission report that actually led to the beginnings of some of the, acknowledgement publicly about some of the failings in the Trust. If anybody does want to remind themselves of that, it is available on the website. But I think the important point is, we provide services right across the Bay, and there are different problems in different parts, and actually, what we've got to try and do is get them right across the Bay. And you're right to say that we've got to meet those standards in all our hospitals, and importantly here in Furness. Rachel raised an issue about travel, and it was one of the things that when we hit the staffing crisis recently, actually led to, you might know, we didn't have to make the decision, thankfully. And we then got into discussion with the wider network and with the ambulance service about what would be possible. Could we possibly transport patients? And I think the view there was, no, we couldn't do that safely. So I think whatever solutions we do design, that is a major factor for this community, and it's got to be high on the criteria of things that we look at when we decide what we need to do. Margaret, if I can just thank you for just acknowledging what the staff provided for you on Ward 7. I feel for my staff, absolutely, and George mentioned that, and the fact that I think Jeff did too, the fact that I know, the communication is everything. We didn't get to communicate with staff as fast. We didn't communicate with you as fast as we should have. We didn't communicate with staff as quickly as we should have. And we learned some really painful lessons by now. So George and I are also talking about actually putting a team of a senior nurse and a deputy medical director at the Barrow and Furness site, because we need some continuity of leadership in both nursing and medicine, in other disciplines as well, in general management and site management. But it's really important for the staff at Furness, they've got a point of contact, because when I'm in Lancaster, like for you, it's an awful long way just to get backwards and forwards. But I want to recognise there are a lot of staff in the audience, and they've been really hurt by a lot of what's gone on in the public and etc. They come to work to do a good job. That's why they join the health service. They do a fantastic job, so thank you to all staff in the audience.
Could you indicate, please, next round of questions? Right, okay. I could have this woman here. I'll have that man, Emma, there, who's got his hand up. I'll put somebody over here. I won't have to everybody. Terry, that woman in the sort of there. Yes, if you'd stand up and give your name, please, if you don't mind.
My name's Stephanie Shaw. I work at the hospital, but I'm on maternity at the minute. I'm reading that there's a medical ward shut in, a surgical ward, and maybe another ward. Can you answer and tell us, are these wards shutting? Because I want to know where I'm going back to a job at, and we don't know. We haven't a clue what's happening, and we want to know, really.
Good evening, my name is Jim Kay and I'm from Ward 9. I was basically going to ask the same question as Steph. We just need answers as to what's happening with these bed cuts.
My name's Maureen Gill, and my question isn't about the maternity, which is very important, but my friend, he had cancer of the bladder, and he has to have a check-up every 3 months. And normally he goes to Furness General, but the last time he had to go up to Kendal. And every time he has to go for these checkups, his blood pressure goes out of the roof. So there's no possible way he could drive. So I had to take him up there. And why are they taking all our amenities away from Furness General?
In the future, and all the rumours that are swirling around the hospital about potential ward closures are deeply destabilising for patients and staff, and I hope you can say more about them. I'm under no illusions, no one should be under any illusions about the difficulty of the task which is facing health managers who've been put in a very difficult position given the scale of the cuts that unfortunately they have to implement in operating budgets. Now, I want that to be different, and I regret deeply. Look, there are a number of factors for that, but I regret deeply that promises are not being kept to maintain investment in the health service. But these things have got to be done openly. They've got to be done with consultation. There cannot be reconfiguration by the back door. It isn't fair on anyone, not the people who work in those wards, or the many patients who rely on them. And it cannot be a one-way street. No one should look at Furness as the easy option to take away services and put them in Lancaster.
Shouting up there, but they are, and I know that, I got involved in this campaign because the maternity unit is what I feel passionate about as somebody who's not involved in the hospital, and that's why we just have to all keep getting involved so that, our voices are keeping heard, so they don't think that we're just an easy option, can take away and put it elsewhere. So I know people are really passionate about things, but we'll keep going, and whoever that was, we'll come to you. John, will you finish? Sorry, I interrupted you. Imagine. We're married in case you don't know.
Thank you. I've taken them in perhaps not the order in which they were raised. First of all, the question around the follow-ups of people who require further inspection of the bladder as part of their continuing care. That was not an executive decision in which I was a party. I have actually inquired of the division why that move was made, so that I fully understand it, and to be sure as to the reasons, so that if there are good reasons for actually saying this is only a temporary move, I would want to know personally if it was more than a temporary move to expedite a pattern of care that was not able to be delivered on the Furness site for good reason in the short term. It may relate, and I'm speculating because I don't know, it may relate to actual capacity issues, that we have more capacity in Kendal at the moment, so that if we use some of our capacity in Kendal, we can treat more patients through the endoscopy unit at Furness by doing some of that work in Westmoreland General. If that's the explanation, and I hope that it is, then I wouldn't attach anything sinister to it, other than that we need to make very clear that there are people who are disadvantaged by the process as it's been put in place, and we would need to address that. Now, the other question, I think, related to what was going to happen in relation to potential ward closures. The conundrum that we are faced with is that we have to operate our services with much less money in the next financial year than we did in the past. And this isn't a problem that is exclusive to University Hospitals of Morecambe Bay. It will be affecting all hospitals everywhere, and it is a challenge for all hospitals everywhere. One of the areas that we can reduce our spend, and in that sense it might actually be an invest to save, is that we have a bill for extra work and for employing doctors and nurses through agency locums, which far outstrips the cost of providing those staff through the normal route. And part of our cost improvement programme will be to actually remedy that. But if we have to spend an extra £1 million, £2 million to save 4, that will actually be a positive achievement towards what we need to do. Now, the second bit that probably impacts very much on the questions that were being asked is how do we also make our services more effective and more efficient? One mark of the efficiency of a service is that patients spend as little time in hospital as possible. That should reflect good quality care. In other words, day surgery that is done effectively with the right support systems and allows people to go home the day they have their surgery with the right care, with the right medication, and have appropriate follow-up which they understand, they know about when they leave hospital, should be a part of our manual. And unfortunately, it isn't always. Our day case rates are higher than the average, so we need to address that. Equally, if you look at the length of time that our patients spend in hospital following emergency care, following other elective procedures, it is above the national average. And that may reflect the fact that we're not treating you as effectively and efficiently as we should be. We need to resolve those problems. Clearly, if we do, then we will be able to provide our services using fewer inpatient beds. Now, clearly, that has an impact. There's also, I think, something which I would like Jeff to comment on, and that is a move to provide more services in the community. So some of the people for whom we may not need to provide care in hospital will have a need for care in the community, and there may just be a transfer of opportunity for healthcare employment from one area to another.
Thank you very much. Jackie?
Can I just respond a bit more directly to Stephanie and Jim's anxiety about staffing? And in fact, next week I'm doing the first of a round of briefings on this very issue. I'm at Barrow, I think on Wednesday or Thursday next week. And what I'm going to try and do is use the modern technology. I'm trying, like YouTube and so on, so that I can record it. So if you're not in at work at that particular time, you can hear what I have to say. But what we're trying to do, George has talked about trying to get patients only staying in hospital as long as they need to do. What we're trying to do, though, is have a minimal impact on staffing. We're using really high levels of agency and temporary staffing at the moment. We are removing some beds. We can't take £25 million out, which is what we've been asked to do. It's not what we want to do. Over 2 years, we cannot do that without making some efficiency like that. So yes is a short answer to it. Will it impact on staff? We are doing everything possible to make sure that it doesn't. And we'll work with you on that. And we'll start to give you some of the detail from next week on those issues.
We will come to more questions. Jeff?
Well, very briefly, just do not underestimate the size of the challenge that we face in Furness, in Cumbria, Morecambe Bay, in the country. The health service budget has been absolutely flattened. That's actually a lot better than what's happened to social services budgets and police budgets and the like. But it has been flattened, and that's after many years of substantial growth. But expenses keep going up, salaries, equipment costs, etc. So the challenge, as John has said, is absolutely huge, and we're just at the start of that. And it is no decision of the Commissioner to do this, and it is no want of the provider, Morecambe Bay, to want to cut the money. There is a plan over 5 years for the budget to keep shrinking significantly, and we have to Our task is to try and plan for that. So, as I said at the beginning, we've got this work going on now, trying to plan how we cope within the changing finances, how we cope and solve the problems that Morecambe Bay have had. I have to say, historically, before Jackie and George have been in place, and how we cope with the increasing demands from new medical practice and technology. The size of the task is huge. I will, and I believe everyone else will give it their best shot, and we will involve you in understanding that. Undoubtedly, at the end, there will have to be decisions made and priorities. It's really absolutely key that we understand what your priorities are, what's most important to you. Not everyone will get everything they want, but we'll have to understand the priorities and understand the evidence as to how to get the best outcomes. That's the way we will have to work. And if we focus that back on the maternity issue, if we can redesign the maternity service so that we can deliver you a high-quality, safe, consultant-led service in Barrow, we will do, and that will cost us more. And we don't have any more, so we will then be discussing with you how do you see us reshaping the budgets for other services. And that's as stark as it will get, as different as it will get. But I think I'm hearing that maternity is a priority.
Okay, can we have more questions? People are asking more questions, so I'm going to ask everybody to try and be briefer. I have one woman there, there's a woman in red, is there anybody over here? There's a gentleman in the middle here. Sorry, I missed the back. I'll come up to the back next time, I promise.
I'd just like to ask Jackie how you can even consider closing more beds when we can't accommodate the patients what we've got now.
Stand up.
My name is Dani Petrova, and I would like to ask if you want to provide us with the best possible for us care. Just don't close the unit and keep it consultant-led. That's what we need. If that's your main aim to keep us the best possible care, just keep it open and do whatever it needs. It's more stuff, more make the stuff work less hours or things. Just keep it open and consultant-led. That's the best for us.
Thank you. It's this gentleman here, right in the middle, the most difficult place for a microphone person.
Hi, I'm Andy. I'm the head chef at Furness General, and I'd just like to ask you about the decision to move to a cup chill system, which for the audience means basically we'll stop making fresh products on site and move over to buying it in. We'll be buying it in frozen, reheating on site and giving it to staff. They started doing this at Kendal already, and the patients think it's disgusting. So I just want to know the reasons behind that, really.
And I'm just going to add one more. Thank you. I'm just going to add one more to this round. This lady here. Could you hold your microphone up?
I worked in Furness General Hospital for 17, 18 years. I'm retired now. And they've been chipping away from that maternity for 7 or 8 years that I know of. So what I think, if you want to save money, I think you should close Lancaster maternity and let the people of Lancaster go to work. A lot easier for the people of from Lancaster to go to Preston. It's even easier for the people of Lancaster to go to Preston than it is for the Barrovians to go to Kendal.
What with Lancaster being on the motorway. Right, I am going to start with Jeff this time. Sorry, I'm trying to mix it up.
I don't know a lot about cup chill food, but it doesn't sound very appetising, but you might convince me otherwise. The Lancaster closing option and if I was the Lancaster GP, I'd be defending that and saying, and I think it is a difficult decision because there are different communities involved with their own interests at heart, and it is an option that needs to be considered, just like the option of closing Barrow, that needs to be considered just to be discounted, and I'm sure Lancaster may discount the same, but I understand the point you make. I think ultimately there needs to be, if we're going to go down that route, there needs to be a strategic decision made, supported by people from outside the locality. This is a big decision if we go at that extreme, and that, because that involves, if Barrow wasn't here, for instance, that affects the people right up the west coast. What if Whitehaven doesn't have a service in the future, or just a midwife-led service? So there are strategic decisions that are beyond me and beyond the people in this room, but I understand it's an option.
Well, thank you very much for your contributions. I do appreciate and I do understand the depth of feeling around this, and I sympathise with you hugely. The problems that we face are not necessarily ones that we either would want to face or that we would have any sort of notion that the only solution is to close the services we have here. We want you to participate, and we want you to voice your opinions, because they may need to be heard elsewhere if we are to find the right solution. Part of the problem with providing services, and particularly services that would be viewed as relatively low volume, and that would include maternity services in Barrow. Barrow has at the moment somewhere between 12 and 1,500 deliveries a year. It varies a little bit, as you'd understand, from year to year. Lancaster has 2,400, again, slightly variable figure. If you put those two together, you've only got at most 4,000 deliveries a year, probably less. At the moment, they're amalgamating maternity units in large conurbations to achieve standards of quality and expertise that are deemed to be only deliverable on the basis of having large numbers of patients so that everybody sees everything. And you're talking here about 6,000 deliveries a year plus. Now, whilst that is one standard of excellence, one of the questions that we have to ask on your behalf is what we do about that and how we provide those services safely for communities that are clearly not going to be able to work on that scale. And those are important questions. I don't have all the answers, but I could assure you that I will be asking those questions on your behalf, because I certainly feel, as I've said already this evening, that if there is to be any change, we have to demonstrate that that change is for the better, and there cannot be any change that actually leaves you with a worse service than you have at the moment. So it doesn't give you a guaranteed answer, but I hope it spells out that we share your concerns, and we will be working for solutions, whatever they may be, that will allow you appropriate access to safe services, and they will not be worse than the services you have at the moment. Is that, I hope that still cooked food is concerned. I must confess that came as a surprise to me. I wasn't aware of that decision, for which I apologise. My view would be that we must make sure that both patients and staff have access to food that is palatable and meets appropriate nutritional requirements, and that any change should be based on making sure that their needs are met in the most appropriate way, and if they're not, then those decisions would obviously have to be reviewed.
Kat's concerned about the fear that the maternity unit is being run down or certainly increasingly stretched over the years is widely felt, and I've been I was really concerned by the figures presented to me this week by James Titcombe, I think is in the audience. Really reflecting back on the crisis, the proposed emergency transfer, which looked on the face of it to be a sickness crisis. Now clearly sickness rates were bad, but what James highlighting to me just today that actually his freedom of information request showed that the number of nurses in the special care baby unit was at the beginning of 2011 more than 14 full-time equivalents according to these figures here, and by the turn of the year was at 10, which obviously means that any sickness crisis is going to hit you far more starkly. And it's really important that we continue now on a sustainable track, but that we manage to have a system which we're not going to be buffeted around like this in future years.
How did I respond to that? James emailed me about that today, and I did respond and say we'd talk offline. Of course, we can talk publicly about that as well. I think the problem is when we get into debates, usually via email and about statistics, it's important to get underneath those. They don't always tell the complete picture. I think it's important. Kath raised the point, a very good point, about there are interdependencies between services. And that's true of all services at Barrow. So, it's important we keep critical care services, A&E services, special care baby unit level 1 services and maternity services. But they are all interlinked. So what happened during the crisis was, and the underlying current about difficulties has been mainly in neonatal staffing. And they are like, I have to tell you, this is something perhaps that, John can help us with politically, but we're not training enough neonatal nurses. And more importantly, we need to think about ways we can recruit them into our hospitals, including Barrow. So for a while we found that difficult, and even when we had the crisis and tried to get the North West Neonatal Network on board and tried to talk nationally, do you know what? We got one extra neonatal nurse. So we've been having discussions about what we need to do, and I think Danny raised a point about, well, let's just keep it open. A really good point. In order to do that, I'm saying we cannot, if that's a decision that comes with the outcome of this process, then we have to build in resilience. So, the commissioners will know at the moment we're saying, actually, we'd like to recruit an additional 5 neonatal nurses. That's the number we would like to keep the network safe. But that costs money, and I think in the order of about £250,000. So we're back into that debate about priorities, but we are having those discussions.
Well, do you want you can take the next round of questions, yeah? We'll take the next round of questions now. Have you finished, Jackie?
Yes.
Is all you wanted to say yes? Okay, I promise I'll take you, James, but I'm going to I'll take you first, then I'll take 3 from up this corner. So there's, I think that's a lady there. Yes, you are. There's a gentleman at the end, and then there's a lady in a cream top. Yes, from James, and then those 3 up there. Then.
I just want to pick up on the last point Jackie was making there, and it is a fact that the number of neonatal nurses have gone down, as John said, from more than 14 at the beginning of 2012 down to 9.9. And actually in January, the number of neonatal nurses that were sick was the average for the whole 2-year period. And what annoys me is that the way it was presented by the Trust was an issue about sickness. Well, the sickness was average, Jackie, but what had actually changed was the number of neonatal nurses employed by the Trust. So why didn't that message come across?
We've got half an hour, so people, everybody, including the panel, could keep things going. That would not be it.
Hello, my name's Claire, I'm an oncology nurse. There's lots of speculation. Because of the poor communication, we're unaware of what's happening to obviously services because they're all under review, but there's been lots of talk about oncology shutting. We've talked to one of the consultant oncologists, and they've said that there's not a need for 8 inpatient beds, but that outpatient services would continue and maybe improve and develop and expand. But 1 in 3 of us will get cancer, and if planning on shutting the inpatient. I just worry about the concerns and whether the public have been told about it and whether they've even been considered. They say that staff are going to get relocated to other jobs, but what's going to happen to the patients? Are they going to be on general medical wards? And are they going to get the care? So there's lots of speculation. We're all concerned about
Richard Wilson, retired surgeon who worked at Furness General in North Lonsdale. That dates me a little bit. I'd like to say, having spent 30 years on the peninsula, I would like to congratulate the people who have organised the campaign to keep the maternity services going. They're doing a fantastic job. What worries me is, dare I say it, the creeping underground changes which are taking place. I speak from the point of view of vascular surgery, which has disappeared from Furness General, on an elective basis and, importantly, an emergency basis. And then I go on to the urology, which I know best, and the lady who made the comment about her husband having to travel to Westmoreland General for procedures which have been carried out safely, efficiently at Furness General for over 20 years, are being moved en bloc to Westmoreland General. Not only that, the major urology which used to be carried out at Furness General has all been removed. So we have the loss of vascular surgery, a major drop in urology, and I would just wonder what knock-on effect this is going to have for staff levels.
Hello, my name is Jill Williams. You talked about cost cutting, but every week I go on my emails and there's always new management jobs. Yeah. Seems to be.
Challenge the panel to be as brief as you can, George. I'm going to start with you.
Well, first of all, I'll respond to Dick's question about dwindling services. This really relates very much to what we were previously discussing in relation to maternity, in the sense that there are now publishing data in relation to outcomes, and those outcomes tend to show that the quality of the service and how good the outcomes are relate to the number of patients that are treated by that service. And that inevitably puts pressure on an area where those services will be of low volume. So what we have seen in response to that is that where services, and this particularly applies to things like vascular surgery and some of the less common cancers, that where those patients are brought together for elective care, this is not emergency care, this is elective care, in a centre where there is expertise to do that, which is gradually built upon year on year, then the outcomes for those patients are better. I've already indicated that I am uncertain precisely as to why the urological services have been moved en bloc to Westmoreland General and speculated on the reason why. I don't necessarily think that that is or should be a permanent change in the way that services are provided. Vascular services have been in the headlines. We were not successful. They asked for all the trusts in Cumbria and Lancashire to bid to provide those services, and we bid along with everybody else. The way that those services were scored, and if you looked at the data that was submitted, the outcomes for the Morecambe Bay unit in Lancaster were as good or better than anybody else's. The decision that was made in terms of the scoring was largely based on the position that the Trust found itself in relation to the regulators, and this wasn't specifically to do with vascular services. How the Trust found itself in a position where it wouldn't ideally have wanted to be 12 months ago. We have appealed that decision. The decision was actually just based on an assessment of the unit. It wasn't assessed on how services have been provided. And to try and keep this short, the Cumbria OSC have referred that decision to the Secretary of State. The OSC is Cumbria County Council's Overview and Scrutiny Committee. We have requested a review too. That review by the NCAT, which is the National, forgotten now what the whole thing stands for, but basically it's a National Commissioning Review Team, will take place a week tomorrow, and we will be participating in that and putting our case again very vigorously to retain vascular services in Morecambe Bay.
Thank you.
Just a very quick so it's credit to Anne Burns and the Health Scrutiny Committee for doing that. This fight is not over on vascular services yet. And I think it is really important that we make as much noise as possible about this. I'm raising it with the Government Minister, and part of the case you're making is that actually the places which people are likely to be sent have come up, unfortunately, on the latest list of high mortality rate trusts. Now, I really want those trusts to get themselves sorted, and I very much hope they do, but it highlights the nonsensical nature of this decision, and we want to keep fighting and hopefully get a result.
James, if I can come to you first, and I'm sure we'll have an ongoing dialogue because, as I've already said, I think some of these high-level stats that are easy to pick up, you know, the devil's in the detail. I really do want to talk to you about that in a bit more detail. But, you know, we've invested quite a lot in both midwifery and we're trying to invest in neonatal staffing as well. The truth is the sickness was really high. You know, staff were working over. Well, you might shake your head, but we looked at the detailed rotas, something that you haven't seen. I'll happily show you those rotas, and you can get the head of midwifery and the head of paediatrics to take you through those, because the figures you're seeing are just not showing that they're about establishments that don't reflect the sickness going on, they don't reflect staff off on training, they don't actually reflect staff, you know, working between units and out into the community. So I'll happily take you through the detail because you're right to push that issue. You know, it's getting more and more difficult to provide what I call district general hospitals because, and I think, you know, the way that the government are leading, the current government are leading policy is that, you know, they're creating these big super centres. And the debate about vascular isn't over because, in actual fact, vascular services is one of our best services in this trust. And I think the board feel very strongly about that. We'll be glad of any support you can give, and we must keep going. Oncology is another service. You know, we've got to keep these really important services as local as possible. How we do that, we might need to really think and think about how we look at prioritising funding, but it is vitally important. You know, bigger is not always best.
Thank you. I think the issue that you raised, James, really what it requires is a change in the way we all work. And I'm trying to work like this as a commissioner, and I think what we want are the providers to work just in a more open way and work more with staff and I hope that's what we're going to get. We've got a new team here and we do have to give them a chance, and they may get it right or they may get it wrong, but that's what we want, a more open culture to understand what's going on. You know, when you look at oncology, someone said to me 2 years ago when we were looking at the strategy for what we were going to commission, and cancer came out top. You know, and you can vascular services are a good thing to ask for, and all sorts of other things we might want. But actually, cancers are a real big thing. Actually, deaths are falling from cardiac disease. We're getting much better at treating an awful lot of stuff, but actually, cancer's a real big one, and I would hold that as a priority. There may be different ways of delivering it, but we haven't been in discussions about that. But it is a priority from the Commissioner's point of view, and I would hope that Furness General in the future does something that's really excellent, that people right round the region say, I want to go to Furness General because they do it really well. And actually, if we've got a lot of cancer, shouldn't we do cancer services? It's what I would hope to see. None of us hope to get it, but when we get it, we need good services. So I just end on a difficult note, and that is You're not going to have everything that you've had in the past. You're not going to have it. Lancaster ain't going to have it. No hospital in the country is going to have it because things are changing nationally. And there are going to be difficult decisions, as I've said before. And I'll give you an example of something that actually makes sense. And some of you might have been through it. If you have a heart attack now, you're quite likely to end up in Blackpool. And actually have, because that's where they can do the really clever stuff. When I started in general practice, and Dick was at North Onsdale, and I was in general practice at the same time, we used to keep the heart attacks at home because we had no technology to actually prolong people's life. So we didn't send them into hospital. Now there is. So it makes great sense to send to Blackpool. And I would urge you to accept the fact that sometimes best is beyond our borders, however difficult that is for you.
Thank you, Jeff. Sorry, I got a bit closer. We have only about 15 minutes left, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and take as many points as possible. I see you all go, woo! And then I'm going to ask the panel to say a few final thoughts, and then we have to finish. So, microphone people, get ready. We'll start with that lady there. I'm going to work my way over, right? Caroline, the lady in blue, and then the stripy arm. Go, sorry.
Hi, I'm Caroline Hogger. I'm a mum of two and I'm also a head teacher of Greencoat Infant and Nursery School in Barrow. I'm also the lead commissioner for the Furness Poverty Commission. So just a few points to raise. I just want to support Rachel's concern about the financial issues. Like many of the families at my school cannot drive. I've got a member of my staff, where's Claire, who was on consultant-led care, who had to travel to, would have to travel to Lancaster twice a week and could not possibly afford to do that. So that is a big concern that I'm hearing daily from my families coming into my school talking about that issue. The other thing that we're passionate about, and there's lots of teachers in this room are passionate about families, and one of the biggest issues once you've given birth is having your family around you and that emotional attachment that children need. You've got other siblings in your family who want to know where their mummy is and want to meet this new child who's been the reason why they haven't seen their mummy for a few days. I think that's a real concern, and because of our geographical location, I think that really needs to be considered because you would be removing attachment and emotional support from those families. That is absolutely crucial. And the final point from the Furness Poverty Commission, lots of the steering group are here, give me a wave, Anne's here. Lots of people involved in the Poverty Commission. One of the big issues is the reduction in opportunities in Barrow. And I feel like already families are saying to me, we're looking to move out of the area before having another child. And I believe that taking the maternity services, reducing them, would decrease opportunities and aspiration further in Barrow, which is absolutely disgusting.
Hi, my name is Hannah Bell. There's been a lot of talk tonight about community engagement and open and transparency. But ultimately, these decisions are going to be made by a board of directors. And I wonder, is there actually a community voice on that panel?
Thank you. The lady behind you, just pass it back.
My name's Bex. I'm actually a mother and a staff nurse. I want to say thank you to the midwives actually in the room because my midwifery experience was absolutely amazing. I actually lived in Manchester for the past about 8 years. I actually went to register my training. 3 of my colleagues from Manchester had babies in Manchester. Within 2 hours of delivery, they got asked what time you're leaving, and my midwives couldn't do enough for me. My other thing is to the panel. I've been trying to move back here since I qualified in May 2005 for a job within children's service or neonatal services. I have literally just started in neonatal a couple of weeks ago after all this kerfuffle, not knowing I had a job before or not. And what I'm hearing is what's being done to keep the good, trained staff that have got lots of experience in this area, to keep them working, to keep them in this area. And what you're actually doing is recruit, because I've only ever seen 2 temporary posts advertised in 5 years for children's services and nothing for neonatal. This is the first post for Furness General that's been advertised at all in 5 years.
Thank you.
Hello, Mark Wilson here from Ulverston, and I bet you're my next door neighbour, as is the small baby boo over there too, I think. Question for the panel and for Jackie, Rin and George about the University Hospital being a foundation trust with members. You've not mentioned the members yet. Could we do something more with members to keep people informed and perhaps hold some more meetings a bit like this on the form of a members meeting, so we don't have to have knee-jerk reactions to react to everything? And I'd like to see if Jeff and the CCG would also do something along that line, because you seem to be taking ideas and saying, we'll take it away and think about it. Well, I think you should do more of your thinking in public with the people from here to assist you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Anne Burns. I'm a cancer counsellor, but I'm also a governor on the trust, which is very different. They have a board that runs the hospital, but then they have governors. It's similar to a school. And I'm a governor, but I wasn't an elected governor. I'm an appointed governor that looks after the interests, or tries to look after the interests, between the county council and what's going on with the trust. So I sit on that governor, and there are a few members here, governor members, that are elected on your behalf, so you do have a voice, or we try to give a voice. Can I just say that I think the campaign that's been run has been absolutely superb in raising these issues, and we need to actually harness that and make sure that we keep hold of that. Our hospital and our health service is so important in this area. Can I just add to that, because we still have a situation in this area where our people die 20 years before people that in other parts of Cumbria. We have still got that situation, and our needs are very, very different to the needs of people that live in West London and down in Lancaster. And we have to take that into consideration when we're commissioning services. And I think the other thing that we talked about, Jeff, you've talked about this, that Furness has never had its full share of the money that it should have to run its health service. And it's about time we start. We've got to get our heads around, because you know, we've talked about that long and hard, and we've got to actually start identifying where this area has not had its fair share and starting raising that as an issue. And I know your heart lies with what's going on in Barrow, and you want to see what's going on. And I just want to say thank you for coming here tonight and sitting up there to answer the questions, because it's really important to us. But we've got to work together now to make sure this area gets its fair share of its hospital and its health service in this town.
Thank you, James. Anthony, could you pass it to
Hello, I'm Liam Kennett, I'm a local councillor. I just want to reflect on the anger around me.
And I've just got a quick question. First, thank you all the nurses in Furness General, you're amazing. Secondly, just obviously, I understand that you've got a big budget and you need to cut, but obviously there's people's lives on the line as well. Is this cut, I assume this will be equal throughout Morecambe Bay and not just obviously try to cut wards just in Barrow, obviously the majority. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hannah, I'm going to have to ask you to be really brief because we're right up against it. George?
Thank you very much for raising all those points. I couldn't attempt to answer them all in the time available, but I think the message that I would like to give is that we would like to engage in further dialogue with you and with our staff, and I hope that as we build that up, you will have more confidence in us and that we will both achieve what we want.
Thank you. John?
Incredibly good points raised in that last set and right the way through. I'm just going to pick up on two which I think really sum up where we are. First of all, Anne, we have got to make sure that Barrow and Furness gets its fair share of the healthcare that we need, because it is a scandal that areas like Barrow, where people die 20 years before other areas. We cannot accept that as a town, as a country, that happening. And healthcare is the key way that we can change that. And then Hannah's question, will people listen? Look, that is the million-dollar question. And we look at some of the other areas around the country where people have come to meetings like this and they've shouted and they've made their case heard, and actually we're finding that people aren't listening. And this is the opportunity now, first of all, as commissioners, as managers of healthcare, to be able to listen to what people are saying. And ultimately, this could get kicked up to the government, and the Secretary of State, the Health Secretary, could have the final say on this. And they have to take what you're saying seriously. It's so important.
Well, Jeff.
The
were a lot of challenges there for me, but the two I'll answer. The gentleman from Ulverston, we're doing that, what you're asking. That's what I've just told you. We're having a 3-month engagement process. Unfortunately, it hasn't started the press before this meeting's happened, so you may think we're not doing it, but there's a massive programme of an opportunity for every member of the public to contribute to the debate. You'll hear it in the papers, on the radio, there'll be a website, and there'll be meetings which you'll be able to go to. And that's all planned and ready to go to supplement what's going on here. So we're doing that. The other point is that's about this process at the moment. For the future, we're not actually legal commissioners yet, but we are for the 1st of April. For the future, there will be a body called Health Watch, and they will be the body that work with the public. And we have a plan to work with them to discuss with you, and people like Anne Burns and Brendan Sweeney have been working with us on what we call a health and wellbeing board for Barrow. And that's where us as commissioners come along and listen to other members of the community, to borough councillors, county councillors, to public health, to members of the voluntary service, and they will in turn work with the public through meetings organised with Health Watch. So it's all planned, your dreams are going to happen. The more difficult one to answer, the bigger challenge, is the money. There's no doubt that Furness has been starved of investment for a very, very long time. And there are very complex reasons why that happens, and I can't put them right. There are two things that can put them right. One, Cumbria, which we're part of, can agree to give Furness more money and take money out of other areas of Cumbria. And guess what? They've agreed to do it. So that's going to happen. The problem that's stalling it is we're actually in the middle of an economic crisis, so there isn't any spare. So there's an agreement to do it, that's going to happen. The only other way it will happen, and actually this is where we need John, and he needs his spinach to do this one, because this is a task that has defeated many governments, and this one has talked about it and not done it. There needs to be a new way of allocating money to recognise the needs of a community like this.
Thank you. Jackie? Just briefly, I want to just acknowledge that I think there's a lot of ambition in the room for services at Furness General Hospital. I hope that, you know, from both George and I's perspective, and the trust that we're in it with you, that we really want to see that happen. We want to make sure these not only are the best services in the country, we don't just want average or below average. We also want to make sure, a lot of points about making sure this is a community where not only people want to come and live, but they want to come and work, and we can offer them some really good education, training and work experience. So, you know, lots of things for George and I and to take back into the organisation.
Thank you, Jackie. Before I finish, a very few thank yous. I'd like to thank Darren McSweeney, who's here, for the video he did at the beginning, and the loads of help he's given us on putting all the 760. Thank you to Emma and Katie for helping with the microphones. Thank you to John's staff, who have been an immense help in putting this on. You know, and me and Rachel and Mandy definitely couldn't have done that on our own. So thank you to all the work that they have done. Somebody asked in the audience, well, are they listening? Well, I'm an optimist, and I like to think people will listen, but people maybe will only listen if we shout loud enough. And that's what this is about. Roadshows, you do all your listening exercises. Not only will we be there, but my neighbours will be there. The people I know at the school gates will be there. We will make sure that people are giving their opinions, because we want the best for this area. So this is just the start. Thank you for coming, and let's just keep getting our voices heard. Thanks, everybody.
I take them here and just to write that truck. What do you do when you just...
I have my own non-private.
I'll just get Lee up to sort the camera out so I don't do it. Easy job. Gary to Lee, is there any chance you could come work out how to stop the recording and discharge the memory card?
Yeah, I'm on my way.
He's coming to sort that out. Yeah, this one is right, and then I'll put it in. Yeah, no worries.
playing alright?
Can't really check it with the audience in. I'll check.
Just play it a bit, alright?
It's coming out, but it should be. The levels are fine. So.
What format does it come out at?